Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. Thank you for joining and sharing this with your friends. Today, we have an awesome new friend, John MacInnes. He started Earthware, and he's created a system and initiative that is solving a lot of our world's problems, and he's here to tell us about it. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about Earthware and why you started it?
Well, thank you, Catherine. It's interesting. I get invited to do podcasts once in a while, and I really like doing them because the way that they put forward what's going on in the city and in the world is always fun. So thank you for doing this. Earthware is and maybe you made it seem a little bit too big about solving the world's problems. We're starting in Calgary and maybe moving to and going to Edmonton pretty soon, and then we'll take over the world. But it's a return for reuse container service for restaurant takeout and delivery, or at least that's how it started out. We've been approached and are now working with some grocery stores and some hotels as well. And so the appeal is pretty broad. But what it is you order from your favorite restaurants around town that are partners with us. You get your food packed in Earthware containers, which are returnable. And we come to your house and pick them up, or there's drop boxes all over the city. We take them back, we wash them, and then we restock the restaurants. And so that's really the idea. There's 60 to 70 million single-use takeout containers used in Calgary every year, and most of those end up right in the landfills. Recycling and composting are not what everybody hoped, and I think everybody's getting that idea at this point, is that it doesn't do everything you wanted, and really reuse is something we used to do, and now we're doing it again.
That's awesome. So you're telling me that the recycled containers, we put them in to be recycled and they end up in landfill? How do they end up in landfill when we put them in recycle?
It's well, it's interesting. So to have a container actually recycled, they have to be in pretty good shape. It doesn't take much to ruin a whole load of recycling. And so when they go into the city of Calgary recycling, they have to be checked and made sure that they're recyclable. And then past that, and it's not just Calgary, this is every city in the world. There's lots of statistics that only about 9% of plastics actually get recycled. Then typically what happens is they're bundled up and they're warehoused somewhere until they can actually be used. But in a lot of cases, they don't get recycled at all. Calgary is actually one of the better cities for this, but when you get straight to plastics, they just don't make it into recycling. They end up getting into landfill or they get housed somewhere until they can get sent away. Calgary has very, very large warehouses full of plastics that have been recycled. And then when you get into compostables, compostables are tough because there's no real governing party that says what's compostable and what isn't. And so anything that says that it's compostable and it has any plastics in it, absolutely, that's just not true. Some of the paper stuff is more likely to be ground up and composted, but because of the way that our city and many cities work, is it takes 21 days for a full cycle to work for composting, and whatever's left they sift out, and invariably all those containers that are supposed to be compostables, they haven't broken down and they're sifted out and sent to landfill. So it's a bit of greenwashing. I actually think that recycling might be better than the compostable because at least some might get done. But anyway, so that's what happens to them. Reuse is always the best way to go, in that the containers never get into that cycle anyway.
I understand. I have one more question that you'll know about compost. So if it's compostable and it ends up in the landfill, how long does it take for the recycled products that everybody's using to compost?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, some stuff will break down in landfill. It takes a long, long time. But as it breaks down, it's creating methane. and a lot of methane. So anything that really goes into landfills, if it's breaking down at all. Now, styrofoams kind of never break down, and Canada's about to ban styrofoam altogether, which is really good. But compostables, even if they do start to break down after some period of time, the same with plastics and other garbage that go into landfill, they're creating a massive amount of methane, which is a greenhouse gas. And methane is probably one of the worst greenhouse gases. So, yeah, so I guess the answer is it doesn't. If they go in there, they're going to create some sort of gas, and it's not better. The best is to not have them go at all.
Understand that. Tell me a little bit more about Earthware. When did you start it, and what do the products look like? What sizes do they come in? Are they similar to the takeaways that we currently have with restaurants?
Yeah, sure. Started Earthware. We were with one of my other companies. We were doing a partnership with DoorDash, and we started to think about all of those single-use containers that those guys are delivering, thinking originally that they might be our perfect market for bringing them back, and they still may be in the future. But then just started looking into how much of this stuff is going into the garbage. And I think it really started with me, because every time I order takeout, and we do order a lot of takeout in our family, all these containers come, you know that you're sort of sorting them and putting them away, but I just had a sinking feeling that it wasn't working the way I'd hoped. And that was the beginning of it. I'm not actually a diehard environmentalist. I'm just a guy that really hates garbage. And now that I've dug into it, I mean, you asked me stuff about composting and recycling. I had no idea about all those statistics when I started, but now here we are, and it just it's motivating me more and more to make this work.
Wow, that's very cool, John. I applaud you. So the sizes would be
containers.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, look at this. I just happen to have a whole bunch of them here. So we've got a few sizes of the small sort of salad bowl type things. We got a big soup bowl. So the answer really to your question is, are they like other takeout containers? They are. They're just thicker, better, and they last about 1,000 times worth of washes. And then after that, we actually have a recycle partner that will take them and 100% recycle them. So we don't ever worry about them going into that stream where only 9% get recycled. All of ours do. So this is what they look like. People really like them when they get them. And the chefs at the restaurants, we've got 30 some odd restaurant partners now. They love them because it presents the food really, really nicely.
Yeah, it would. I see that. And so you've got your QR code on the bottom, and
yeah, QR code. So you scan that and it tells you how to get them back to us, either picking them up or there's drop-off bins. And
brilliant. So now what about
neighborhoods?
What about when they're being recycled? Is there any negative emission from that, like the methane, like you mentioned before? Or is there any?
Yeah, well, you know, really the difference is that if between these and a single use unit, is these can be used 1,000 times, whereas your single use one, which is similar actual impact in the recycling and those sorts of things. You've only used it once. So yeah, these do go back into the system. Because we have a deal with a recycling partner, they get turned into something else, which is nice.
That's awesome. So good. So you said 1,000 uses.
Up to 1,000, yeah. We've never had a container go 1,000 because we've got thousands and thousands of containers. So we've never had one actually make it to 1,000, but we've got a few that are in the hundreds. So
that's cool. Good for you. And you started right here in Calgary?
Started in November. We launched in November. We've got 30 restaurants now. All of the Lena's grocery stores, which is great. The downtown Sheraton is using us for all of their in-room service. So it's really been embraced, and hundreds of members that have signed up.
I like the in-room service. I travel often, and all of these containers, they won't take back. And I'm a recycle person too, so I take them home with me to recycle them.
Yeah. And you know, there's so many people like you and me that are trying to figure out the best way to do it, and that's good for you for taking them home to recycle. But we're hoping that reuse really takes off. There's a bunch of places around the world where it has. France just banned all single-use packaging, and so they've got services like ours. A lot of European cities have these already, and it's becoming the standard for getting your stuff home. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. And what about the grocery stores where they have all those delis and things? Are they thinking of that as well?
Like I said, Lena's is our first foray into that. They're doing their takeout and some grocery right now, just to test it out. But we expect that we'll be eventually get to take over all of their deli, which will be an enormous savings. So I told you there's about 60 to 70 million takeout containers from restaurant. There's another 100 million from grocery that you get home. That is, it's not the Head and Shoulders container that is single use. It's all the deli stuff and all those pieces that you come home, and the saran wrap and that, and the foam.
Yeah, it makes sense to me that Calgary Co-op would be interested in this as well.
You'd think. They haven't called me. We've called them lots of times.
Well, let me see if I can help you with that.
Thank you.
That's awesome, John. I applaud you on this. I'm so glad. It's wonderful hearing all of these new initiatives that are starting to happen, and to do the right thing for the right reasons. I appreciate it. What are your top 3 things that you want to leave us with today? Is there any thoughts that you'd like to say to everybody?
Yeah. So I would say number 1 is just a little bit of learning about what actually happens to the stuff that you're putting in the into the bins. We're doing a lot of separating, and it may not be doing what you hope. So that's one thing that I think everybody can do. Just learn a little bit more about what's going on with the system. The second one is please do support local restaurants. It's amazing what they've gone through in the last couple of years and the resilience that they have. And so the restaurants that are taking us on and partnering with us, they're taking another risk, which is you'd never expect them to do. But they do understand sustainability. They want to get to zero waste, and they really do see that a lot of the packaging that they're putting out there is going in the garbage. So we'd love to see, as the second thing, support local restaurants, support our restaurants. And the last one, which is the most important maybe, is we put these out. They don't always come back because people love them. We need them back, otherwise it doesn't work. So please return your containers.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good, John. I'm really glad that you're doing this work. Keep us posted on how we continue to help you, and good luck. I wish you all the best.
I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you, John. Everybody, thanks so much for joining on Cats Track today with John MacInnes, and check out all of the really cool things that Earthware is doing, and spread the word. Thanks so much.